What was your biggest no going back now moment? When I was younger, letting my older cousin talk me into a canoe ride down a flooded river. We'd planned it days in advance, but there was a lot of heavy rain in the area and the normally calm river was near flood level and quite rough. I really didn't want to do it, but I didn't want to let him down either, so I still went. I knew as soon as we saw the river this was a terrible idea. The whole thing was a shit show, and I honestly thought we were going to die. We had no control, and at one point we got stuck nose down under a large rock, knowing if we tipped out we were drowning. We somehow made it out and to the shore, where we walked back with the canoe. I hopped a freight train once, and the moment it hits 15 to 20 miles per hour, you're just along for the ride. But the real no going back moment came when the train stopped on a siding outside Winnemucca. After waiting there for like 5 hours, I decided to walk into town and get some ice cream sandwiches. As soon as I got 50 yards from the train, I realized, if it starts rolling now, I'll be too far away to chase it down. I'll just be stuck in this town for a while. Edit, for you kids out there, riding freight trains is dangerous and illegal, and dirty and loud and unreliable. Don't do it. Also, I should point out that Winnemucca is home to some of America's best Basque restaurants, fantastic cowboy heritage sites, and it's the gateway to the Black Rock Desert. It's got something for everyone, not just stranded hobos. Getting in the ambulance after suffering a grand mal seizure from alcohol withdrawals. When I finally said enough is enough and decided I needed to quit drinking before it killed me, I thought I could detox on my own, as I was terrified of hospitals. I was wrong. I spent a week detoxing in the ICU, and now, almost a full year later, I'm still very happily sober and I'm completely thriving. When I asked my crush if she is ready for a relationship with me, the 2 hours I waited for a reply took forever. Also sadly she said no. Edit, yeah okay, I think that blew a bit up. Just to clarify, I really had tough feelings for her, and every time we spoke I thought that there was something. After literally 1 whole year I finally asked her, like an idiot, on WhatsApp that question. She said no sorry, and I said that it was okay and dumb for me to ask, and she said sorry again. I told her that I don't want this anyone to know. Well shit, here I am on Reddit, and pretend like this never happened. After that I didn't feel empty or some other stuff. I just felt that everything that I built up to this moment was for nothing. Thanks to for the support. BTW, I know that it was stupid and like a child would do, but I didn't know better. Now I do, and I'm starting to get again feelings for her. Maybe let's see how the second try is. Edit 2. Okay, that's cool how everyone has a different opinion about that, but it ends up on everything. You fucked up. Yeah guys, I know. And thanks for the gold. That first time being dropped off on the Appalachian Trail several states away from home and watching the car speed off into the distance with nothing by my own legs and a stick I found to get me back. I love that stick. I'd fuck that stick if it had genitals. Edit, I'm butthurt that this is my top rated comment so far. And because I didn't use lube. Here, try this hot wing. Took a bite, and for the next 18 hours, I could only focus on how this was a crime against humanity. And for those now asking, it was the last dab 30 on a drumstick. It was coated all over. I just ate one big bite. And then I went and shoved my head under a cold shower. Then, it was bed and bathroom for several hours as I threw up most of it, but some got digested. I knew going it that it was gonna be hot. My former roommate was a hot sauce aficionado. He never once handed me a wing that was less than a habanero sauce. The question was, am I about to have ghost, pepper X, Carolina Reaper, habanero, etc. A bit dark, but when I took a bunch of pills in a suicide attempt. It was around 10 PM on a Tuesday night, and I had just gotten into an argument with my mom. I laid down in my bed and thought about my life, considered asking my mom to take me to the hospital, but decided against it. I thought, Velp, this is it. I'm dying. Then I fell asleep. I took more than the lethal dose of Seroquel XR, but somehow woke up in the morning, slow, but perfectly fine. I consider it a glitch in the matrix, but one I am grateful for. This was in August 2019, and I'm doing a lot better now. Still struggling, but not suicidal. Psychedelics, particularly DMT, because it all happens so quickly and intensely. Salvia. Never again. Only lasts 5 minutes, but holy shit does it feel like an eternity. It's like your entire reality gets smashed into thousands of pieces and you're desperately trying to piece it back together, or getting thrust into the space between the multiverses and you're trying to figure out which one you belong in again. Having your consciousness merged with a red Solo cup on the dresser is the kind of experience a man needs no more than one of in his life. While motorcycling through Vietnam, it was getting late and I was running low on fuel. Too low to turn back to the previous town. If that wasn't bad enough, my bike rack broke. Luckily, a kind man and his daughter stopped to help. He knew no English outside of, "I can fix." So I followed him. I wore my bags and held the rest in my lap. Entering the town, my jaw dropped. It was complete calamity. The streets were filled with people carrying 2x4s, rocks and bottles. Literally hundreds of people. It was like a war zone, with people smashing scooters and cars on fire, people yelling and fighting. A few individuals were running for their lives with mobs in tail. I can still vividly see one man's face as he looked over his shoulder in dread. There were too many people to drive through, so I had to slow down to a crawl. All I kept thinking was, please don't notice me. Please don't rob me and smash my face in. Please know I'm with this kind man and his daughter. The moment lengthened as a few of the town folk started to notice me. I was scared shitless but produced a warm smile. The smile wasn't returned. The kind man looked back and those who were taking interest in me noticed. Can't help but think it helped. We finally breached the throng of people and pulled down an alleyway to his place. I still didn't feel safe, but I needed gas and my rack fixed. I tried to ask the man why all these people were fighting one another. He just smiled and made the drink gesture. It was during Tet, or the Vietnamese New Year. He fixed my rack, gave me some gas and wouldn't take any money as payment. However, like Christmas, the kids received money, so I gave his daughter a fat wad of cash. With his blessing, about 45 minutes later I arrived safely at my hostel in Nirvana. Moving to Europe. For my husband, it was moving home. For me, yeah, nope. But I have a rare disease and American insurance was about to actually kill me, kept denying medications. I was getting worse and worse, and he managed to get an amazing job in a great city to try to save my life. So 5 years ago, we're 2 hours into our flight there, the flight where we're moving forever, and I was too sick to visit first or anything, so I've never seen it before, and I'm realizing, I'm not actually well enough to fly back to the US. Who knows when I'll see anything or anyone from again, and this is it, and suddenly, I'm just a bit panicking gone. Like, what is plane? Where is air? The flight attendant was offering me a cup of tea at that almost exact moment and I just stared at my husband, who is a former Marine and has done all of these insane things, and he looked at me and goes, "Take the tea." I felt like an idiot version of Neo in the Matrix. If you take the tea, the flight keeps going and you see how far this rabbit hole goes. If you don't take the tea, this poor flight attendant stands here looking like a fucking idiot for even longer. So anyway, I took the tea from the dude, and then I guess it worked because who can panic while trying to make tea? Turns out it was truly the point of no return. It's been 5 years. The insurance is much better than the US, they've kept me alive when I definitely would have died, but I'm too sick to actually leave. I couldn't even go home for my grandmother's funeral. So shit, there really was no going back. Unless something kicks in, new treatments etc., I doubt I'll ever see home again. When I reported a co-worker's rape to her attacker's boss, I knew nothing would ever be the same for anyone involved. Edit, Jesus Christ you jerks. Of course she asked me to report it. Holy fuck. Edit 2, because of the horrible replies. It's the rapist's fault for raping, not the victim's. Before you say but they could have prevented future rapes, think about that for a second. Why even put any burden on the victim before putting effort into making the rapist prevent future rapes? Think of this on a large scale, it makes more sense. Prevent rapists from raping first so we don't have to destroy the lives of victims, even further, by making them take the whole burden of preventing further rapes. How do we prevent rapists from raping? Teach people what rape is. Teach people what consent is. Listen to victims and believe them all the time. This doesn't mean the other person's version of what happened isn't valid, it means that what the victim says happened to them is what happened to them regardless. Teach people not to rape. Rape is Any sexual penetration act forced upon someone without their consent. Consent is a person of sound mind verbally agreeing to participate. Not saying no or stop doesn't equal agreeing. Sound mind is not inebriated, not under the influence of the asker's authority over them. The asker is a boss, teacher, family member, police officer, loan shark, drug dealer, PO, therapist, etc., not asleep, not mentally unable to logically decide for any physical reason, disability. If you are in a possibly sexual situation with someone and they are unable to consent because they are not of sound mind, or you are in any way in authority over them, it will be rape even if they say they want it at the time. But thanks to our justice system you probably won't be charged with rape. The point is, the person may feel victimized by you for the rest of their lives. And may tell people that you did so. But, you say, I fell in love with my boss and we are happily married. That's awesome. Your boss trusted you enough to believe that you weren't giving in to him because of his position, and it worked out. This is a rare story. When it happens, if you are the person in authority, you are putting yourself at risk of being accused of rape, or at the very least, having your career impacted by the notion that you date inferiors. I would recommend 1. Saving any written documents, texts, from the person which indicate they are freely entering into a sexual relationship with you. 2. Making sure your HR staff are fully aware and getting signed documents from both of you in your employee files. Seem like a huge hassle? If you really want to be with the other person, it isn't. The world isn't black and white. Every unique situation needs to be dealt with accordingly. What matters is that we start focusing on preventing rapists from raping instead of what victims should do after they are raped. Focus on your own behavior when getting into a sexual situation. Ask questions about how the person feels about it. Would it be okay if I kissed you? Would you like to make out? Is it okay if I take my clothes off? Yes, it feels awkward at first, but only because we've been conditioned by fucking Hollywood to think that sexual encounters are practically free of dialogue and somehow each person can read minds. But we can't. We must communicate very well in sexual situations above all. My thoughts on consent while drinking drugs. People get drunk and have sex. It's a very fun fact of life. But if being inebriated means a person can't give consent, what do we do? 1. Be responsible for yourself. Know your limits. I can make a responsible decision about sexual activity after 3 beers, but no more. Make the choice if you want to get hot and heavy before reaching your limit. Even if you haven't found the person yet. The person shouldn't change your decision about what you want. Then you can be confident knowing you are not letting alcohol make bad decisions for you. 2. If you decide to pursue sexual activity with someone, let them know you are not too inebriated to consent. Ask them what their limits are and if they consent and to what. Full sex or just making out? 1. If you both have consented then you can keep drinking and have a grand night of fucking later. Or whatever. Seems awkward, right? Too bad. Practice makes perfect. This one is quite literally a not going back moment. As a Boy Scout at summer camp we would always take large group hikes on the last day of camp. This particular camp in West Texas was located in the middle of a deep canyon and cut through with a small stream. The day before our hike day it rained a bit but not too much to make us worry. It was drizzling in the morning when we got up but we were Boy Scouts so that obviously didn't stop us. So our long hike had us cross the small stream up the canyon maybe 10 to 15 times, no problem, and everything went great. After a while we get to a medium-sized pond that we all decided to go swimming in. That was fun and we all had a blast. We get out and dressed and we keep going farther up a hill to continue our hike. We get to the top and we hear this wonderfully ominous rushing noise. We look over a ledge and see that the water in the stream was moving a bit faster than we remembered. A friend and I volunteer to go back and see what's happened. A flash flood had ripped through the area we had just left moments before. The water in the pond was at least 7 feet higher than it was 5 minutes before, and it was covered in foam and rapidly overflowing. We decided as a group to test our luck and go back to see if we could get out, but the last stream crossing had turned into a very fast-moving river crossing. Needless to say, we were fucked. We literally couldn't go back, and we had to wait a long time to get help and get to the now almost flooded camp. Hiking backcountry snowboarding with a guy. Got stuck in a flat area and needed to hike out in deep powder. It was getting dark and kept coming out of thick trees to 50-foot plus cliff areas. It was getting darker and we didn't have much light left, and finally came out to another cliff area with about a 10-foot cliff, 20 feet of landing, and then a second 10-foot cliff area that had a narrow landing to an open glade. It was either go for it and don't fall and get hurt, or start making a snow tunnel and get ready to sleep on the mountain for the night at East Vale Chutes in Colorado. We both made it through the cliff jumps safely, but it was sketchy. When we got to town we both had a couple tall whiskeys, and the first bar we got to and I was still shaking. Could have possibly died if we had to stay on the mountain overnight, or got seriously hurt, and then died, making the jumps to get to an area we could get down as it was getting dark, but it was either jump or start making a snow shelter. We were definitely not prepared with backcountry gear and got lost in the area, even though we had both ridden it a few times with some experienced people who had taken us down before. Scary and something I will never forget. 5 years ago my dog, Snoopy, passed away, and he was my best friend for nearly 17 years, so I wanted a tattoo to remember him. One night after a bit of drinking I had my best human friend roommate draw a caricature of him on my right arm. I'm right-handed, so it was hard for me to draw it myself, and I figured that would make it easier. It turned out to be even harder trying to tattoo myself with my left hand and while slightly drunk. Right after I messed up a line really badly, I decided that I might as well keep going at this point, since it was not going to look perfect anyway. It came out very sloppy, and it's definitely the shittiest tattoo I have, but it is also my most cherished. I don't know if I ever want to get it touched up professionally, because I kind of like how it's such a raw expression of emotion. Edit, for those curious as to what Snoopy actually looked like, here is the last picture I have of us together a couple days before he passed, and here is the first. Refusing to serve a customer for the first time ever. It may seem small, but it felt like a big win. I work at a cafe and a woman very rudely asked me for a 16 ounces hot coffee. We don't offer that, we just make pour-overs. Yeah, we're an expensive bougie shop, and I tried to kindly explain to her why, but told her I could make her 2 coffees if she likes, as long as I stick with the recipe. She demanded I change the recipe. I said no, I can't. She spotted a 16 ounces cup behind me and asked what's that. Things were already very tense, and I grabbed the cup and explained this is 16 ounces cup, but it's only for cold brew. It looks similar to the hot cups, but this one is compostable, made from sugarcane, and will melt if hot liquid is poured into it. She grabbed it out of my hand and demanded I made her 2 coffees and pour them into the cup. I said I can't do that, the cup will melt. She told me she would do it herself, which also wouldn't work because she would have 24 ounces of coffee for a 16 ounces cup. At this point other customers were in there giving me the "oh shit, she's crazy, I'm sorry you're dealing with this" sympathetic eye. I knew if she poured the coffee into that cup and burned herself we would have a bigger issue. I said I can't do that, I'm sorry. She demanded I make it again, saying you will make me 2 coffees. She spoke to me so horribly and condescendingly. There was never a please, she spoke to me like a servant, and she was creating a safety hazard. I took a long pause and looked her right in the eye and said, I'm sorry, I can't let you speak to me that way and I won't serve you. She was shocked. She was appalled. The cafe was silent. My co-worker came out from the back and the customer held her card out to her and said she won't help me, so you will. I'll have 2 coffees. And my co-worker looked at her and said, I don't know what's happening because I just got here, but I trust my co-worker, so I'm sorry but I won't serve you. It was so cool. Yes, the woman yelled at us, berated us, mocked my voice, claimed I called her abusive, screamed that we were wrong, demanded our names and corporate's contact. I stayed so calm the entire time. Once she left, multiple regulars and customers offered to back me up if I needed support explaining the situation to my manager. I've worked at my company for years and am consistent and trusted. I called my boss immediately and explained the situation. They received an angry voicemail within minutes and stood by me and my co-worker, send a generic sorry about your experience email but not offering her any compensation. It was seriously one of the best feelings. I stood my ground when in the past I have crumbled or allowed myself to be treated poorly in these types of situations. I asked for the respect I deserve as a human being and my coworkers and bosses supported me. Try it out sometime, it rules. Hiking, knowing that severe weather is on the way. I got about 8 miles in when it started. Dense woods, but rain was heavy enough that I couldn't see 10 feet in front of me. Crossed a small creek halfway through, which on my way back turned into a river from flash floods. I found a somewhat large rock sticking out from a hill and huddled under that for about 15 minutes while lightning struck close enough to hurt my ears and seriously rumble in my chest. Ended up having to follow the creek upstream until it got small enough to cross, which turned what was originally 2 miles of hiking trail, into probably another 8 through raw forest, maybe more, as it was pitch black when I got back to my car, and I had started at noon. Spent those hours bawling my eyes out and slipping in mud more easily in the top 5 most terrifying experiences in my life. I ran away from an abusive home at 19. I called my dad while I was at work later that day to let him know I was okay and not to come looking for me. He's a narcissist and I was so scared he'd tell the authorities something crazy so they'd track me down for him like my boyfriend had kidnapped me. I'd left my car keys on the kitchen table, so he couldn't charge me with stealing it, as he'd bought it for me, emptied my bank account, because he was friends with the small bank owner, and taken everything I could with me, and that was a pretty big one. He said you'll never make it without me and my money, and I just said I can't wait to find out. That was 7 years ago now, and I'm making it. The other day I tried forcing the garage door closed while inside, cause it had been catching on something. It slid with a loud bang and I noticed the wire had disconnected from the springs. It wasn't going to open, it's like 800 pounds and the springs help carry the load of the door. So unless I got the wire back on the spring I was basically trapped. I found some gloves and sunglasses hanging out in the garage already, not safety glasses, but better than nothing, and had to essentially hold the spring with one hand, the wire with the other, and do a chest fly to pull it into place. Adrenaline is a hell of a drug. Getting admitted to a psychiatric ward at 17. I was going through an emo phase. Dyed my hair blue-black, started listening to loud edgy music, wore skinny skins, the whole shebang. I always was a shy, sheltered kid that didn't have many friends. School was my #1 priority and had daily classes from the morning till late in the evening. I was also secretly gay, living in a deeply religious family. Video games were my only outlet. When the school stuff started getting harder and demanding more and more of my time, it got harder for me to juggle between getting my homework done and getting my dopamine rush. Suddenly, I started wondering why I put that much effort into school in the first place only to get mediocre results. My grades weren't bad, probably the equivalent of a B+, but not getting an A still made me feel like I had failed. I was also routinely bullied, so I figured that, if my grades fell, I would make myself less of a target. To cut to the chase, I tried to make myself more likable and got acquainted with emo and alternative culture. Boy, did my mom not like that. She started wondering why her son turned from a nerd to this circus act, straight up asking me if I was doing drugs. I wasn't, BTW, but it didn't matter. She figured there's something wrong with me, so she started dragging me around from one psychiatrist to the other. When the doctor eventually said that there's nothing wrong with me and it's just normal teenage hormones, we would immediately visit another doctor to get a second opinion. Eventually, she booked an appointment with the head of a psychiatric facility, for which she paid an exorbitant amount of money, around $200, which was 4 times larger than the hourly rate of the previous doctors. He asked me a few questions, most of which were answered immediately by my mom, and after about 5 minutes gave me a depression diagnosis. He said that I'd need to start taking antidepressants and that I'd need to stay in a psychiatric ward for a week, so that they can monitor my body's reaction to the medication and do further tests. Now I wasn't planning on going through with it, but after some pressure I started believing that maybe he knows better and there's actually something wrong with me. So I went along. This screwed me up in more ways than I care to recall. I eventually shifted from diagnosis to diagnosis and all kinds of different meds. The shit I saw during my multiple stays there scarred me for life. I'm almost 28 now, still living at my mom's house. I've been off the meds for around 7 years. I recently got admitted to a uni to study IoT abroad. I'm planning on leaving after this summer. Got a general anesthetic for wisdom teeth removal. After waiting what felt like an eternity in a little prep room, I was just thinking about using the restroom just for something to do when I'm swarmed by nurses or whatever. Before I could react, they stuck things all over me and one of them got the drugs in me and I could immediately feel effects. I remember vividly thinking, well fuck, no going back now, as they wheeled me to theater. And then the procedure and recovery went as smoothly as they could have gone.